And this morning our program guest is the Greens immigration spokesperson, Senator Sarah Hanson-Young. But before then, we'll check out the Sunday papers around the country. And Fran Kelly, at the end of a week like that, good timing on the part of one of the newspapers to raise the question why Australian politics is broken.
That's right, and we saw a lot of it there, didn't we? It's all about, too much about, and everyone knows it these days, point scoring, getting the headline, throwing around an insults that will appeal to a certain, voter base in one part of one capital city. It's all about that. It's focus group tested. It's all about, as Peter Costello says in this article, you get the feeling it's all about just trying to stay in power or get into power. This is an article they spoke to quite a few politicians on both sides, former politicians, it should be noted. Steve Bracks, Jeff Kennett, for instance, Peter Costello, Alexander Downer, Gareth Evans, Carmen Lawrence, and all of them, some of them, I think we should put this in perspective, not that far out of the political debate themselves. Suddenly, as Gareth Evans says, the debate in the last election campaign is as desolate as it gets, as he said on the Labor side, all hill and no light. But they're making the point that it does seem in this 24-hour news cycle things are getting more and more bogged down in the quick quip, the quick one-liner, the headline, whether it be great big new tax or whether it be moving forward. Too much of that, not enough substance. And the voters, I think it's clearly think that. I mean, we might talk later about, membership of political parties. There's no interest, not much interest in certainly in younger generations in our political parties, and part of it is because, it's all about cheap political points. It's all about echoing the popular sentiment rather than leading. Julia Gillard gave a speech last week where she talked about needing to get the right balance between cunning and courage, which I thought was an interesting choice of words because in my view, you've also got to have the ideas, you've got to have the policies. Yes, you've got to have strategy. Yes, you've got to be brave enough, but you've got to have the ideas and the policies and believe in them to start us back.
That was a tilt at John Faulkner, of course, the cunning and courage. Yeah. And John Faulkner's just brought down a review of why the Labor Party lost. What interests me, as you say, is they're all ex-politicians, who suddenly see the light in relation to this problem. Nobody ever sees the light when they're actually in a position to do anything about it. And John Faulkner is the same. I mean, he sat at Julia Gillard's right hand during the entire last campaign and has now done a review saying why it was so bad.
And it's all being fought out, though, like on a fairly superficial level, but because there's this sense there's a minority government, there's this sense that there could be an election at any time, and so I think things are more frantic than they otherwise would have been.
But there wasn't a minority government in the last election campaign, and I think we all agree the last election campaign was very light on policy issues to talk about. It was very difficult, covering it every day as I was to try and cover the meat of it, to find the meat of it. No one wanted to talk about it.
Because Labor was running scared, though. They were staring down the jaws of defeat.
Exactly,
and
that's
scared.
What this is about. It's dumbing down because they don't want to frighten any horse anywhere.
And Malcolm, Anna Bligh, and this confirmation that she is certainly popular, far more popular than she was a few weeks ago.
This might be an appropriate segue to the stuff that Fran was talking about. In November, Anna Bligh's rating as a satisfaction rating as Premier was 25%. It's now 60% according to a Galaxy poll. Now, why? Because she got a 93% good mark for her handling of the floods. And what she did, she showed leadership and she showed competence. She was out there telling people what was going on. She knew what was going on. She would tell people regularly. And her leadership was from the front. When the emergency services people look haggard, she looked haggard. So you got the impression she wasn't just going home and having a quick coffee and a lie down in the afternoon.
Like going out to dinner with a few mates.
Well, that's right, going out, yeah. She was committing herself totally to that. Plus, she knew what was going on and was able to communicate that to the voters.
Right balance between control and compassion.
So who would have thought? Leadership and competence might win the hearts and minds and votes of the electorate.
I would add clarity as well. I think that was an
I would
important
add empathy as well.
Now, can I just point out that Julia Gillard, for all her the bad-mouthing of her as being wooden and emotionally unresponsive, got a 61% rating, good rating for her handling of the flood.
And yet, despite that, there was another Galaxy poll that showed that in Queensland, Kevin Rudd is more popular than Julia Gillard. have a listen to Kevin Rudd's response to that, and keep in mind he wasn't being asked here about a poll comparing Labor with with the coalition. It was Julia Gillard versus Kevin Rudd. Here he is.
Well, look, I'm a Queenslander, you know, that's home. And my experience of these things over a long period of time, they go up, they go down, they go up, they go down.
Yep, that's what happens. And Glenn, Frank McGuire, who's destined to be forever known, I think, as Eddie McGuire's brother, won the seat of Broadmeadows for Labor yesterday. That's a seat that became vacant with John Brumby's departure.
That's correct. Labor suffered an 8.5% primary swing against them, but I think they'll be just happy to have held on to the seat. I mean, the history of failed leaders leaving is that often the seat goes with them. It did with Jeff Kennett when he quit in 1999 and his seat of Burwood fell to Labor. So I think they'll be happy just to hold on to it. Yes, he is destined always to be known as Eddie McGuire's brother. Of course, Eddie McGuire is chairman of Collingwood Football Club, and as you pointed out to me off air, Collingwood Football Club has 70,000 members, the ALP has 35,000, so maybe Frank would like to prevail on Eddie for a membership drive.
Yeah, and you mentioned,
the mailing list.
You mentioned that Jeff Kennett had lost his seat. That's a point that Darryl Andrews, the new Labor leader, picked up last night.
There has been a swing against the party today, but I would point out that it has been substantially less than the swing that was recorded against the Liberal Party when Jeff Kennett moved on from Parliament after the change of government in 1999.
Of course, when Jeff Kennett left and they lost that seat, the Labor Party stood in that seat. So you would, I think that's a bit of a distinction there, whereas the Liberals didn't contest.
And the Independents got 20% in this in Broadmeadows at the by-election. So that's a message about the standing of independents as well.
Yeah, and finally, Malcolm, in WA, the Transport Minister is not exactly a role model.
Well, I beg to differ. I think the West Australians can be very proud that their road safety efforts through the police are working. Because of the number of convictions for speeding, and Transport Minister Troy Buswell, he of the chair sniffing and the affair with the Green, can attest to that because he's been busted 3 times over the past 6 months.
He's a man in a hurry.
Once while he was Transport Minister. Now, in most other states, a Transport Minister who gets done in for speeding normally has to consider his or her position. But I think the Buswell factor means that he will get away with this. In fact, he's not commenting, and nor is his leader. One point I could make on this, as Transport Minister, maybe he should increase the fines, because once he was pinged for driving 9k over the limit, and the fine was $75. A second time he was pinged for essentially driving 20k, more than 20k over the limit, and the fine was $150. I mean, $150, that's a parking fine in Canberra and in Sydney. Maybe as Transport Minister, it's up to him to increase those penalties.
Can I just ask, what is the Buswell factor?
Yeah, I was going to say
well, you
that
can get away
too.
with anything. I would imagine that wholesale manslaughter, you might be able to...
You could be in trouble.
You might have to front a court on, but everything else, apparently, you can escape and, in fact, be promoted.
OK, that's the Sunday Papers, and we'll go to our program guest now, the Green spokesperson on immigration, Senator Sarah Hanson-Young. To take us there, here's Immigration Minister Chris Bowen relaunching multiculturalism during the week.